The Eternals. We have the first official box office numbers for the Eternals, and it already looks pretty bad. Of course, it's pretty good for a pandemic era release, but it's a pretty bad number for Marvel. This movie is underperforming compared to Black Widow and Venom to Be Carnage, which both films opened to 80 and 90 million respectively. And let's not forget about the movie might have terrible wigs. This movie is barely performing better than Shang-Chi, with Shang-Chi opened during a weekend that nobody thought would any movie would actually do well in that weekend altogether. Shang-Chi had like all the odds stacked against it, and it still opened to one of the highest openings of the year, the third highest opening of the year. Yeah, yeah. It also opened during the Labor Day weekend, where it was a 4-day weekend. So the Eternals is most likely going to open below Shang-Chi, which will be laughable to see. Because sometimes movies have pretty good Thursday previews, like Halloween Kills had 4.9 million Thursday previews views, and it opened barely over opened around the same as Quiet Place Part 2. So this movie could possibly make around 75 to 76 million dollars at the box office. But really, what movie's gonna be most is the legs. The Eternals is very unlikely to have good legs. It is very unlikely to have good legs. Even Disney's already abandoned the Eternal ship by not even giving this movie a sequel. This movie had the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score by Marvel. Well, and no, I'm not the fan of Rotten Tomatoes establishment. A lot of people who watched this movie said this movie was boring and said it sucked. Okay, so a lot of people who watched this movie all said the same things. Of course, you have the Disney bots and the Disney, bought and paid for reviews on IMDb, which will always be there for every Disney movie, which is which is the funniest thing to see. But the Eternals is not really doing too well. And now it's at a 6.8 on IMDb. This is why people say Disney does not buy reviews on IMDb. Yeah, they do. We went from a 5.9 on IMDb to a 6.98 on IMDb in the course of 2 days. Okay? People don't really like this movie. People just don't. Okay? A lot of people don't really like this movie that much. It has a 5.7 on Metacritic here. And of course, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to defend this movie. A lot of people who are going to defend this movie. And the Eternals, I think it does a sinking ship. It won't have good legs at the box office. And you have all the Disney bought and paid for reviews on the IMDb. And we all know Rotten Tomatoes score is always rigged from the start because the quote-unquote verified score even gave Space Jam: New Legacy an 82% when every single man and woman and their dog despised that movie. But even by the critics, they don't like this movie. 50%. That's abysmal. That beat For the Dark World tenfold on Rotten Tomatoes. First, it passed. Actually, it's at 49% now. First, it passed For the Dark World as the worst rated Marvel movie. And then, of course, you have the, and you would think that Disney would try to do everything in their power to save this movie by the critics, but nope, it's at 49%, which is the worst Marvel rating ever. It went from a 70% from like the first couple of reviews, which is most likely the Disney bought and paid for reviews, but even the Disney bought and paid for reviews couldn't really save this movie's critic score. We're going to really wait to see how this movie holds up. There is a group of people that is always starting to make a cult following for the Eternals film. Again, cult followings don't always lead to success. For example, Blade Runner 2049 still flopped at the box office. And Alita still struggled at the box office in America. So, cult followings don't always make a movie super successful. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But you have all these people on Metacritic praising this movie like it's the best thing ever. But again, once the real people start watching it, not the preview crowd, was the preview crowd usually our, the fanboys, the people who want to see the movie firsthand, basically they're the only ones there. We all know the IMDb scores. You're gonna be because again you can put a rating and not put down a review. Okay, that's what you can do on IMDb. Like for example, I can just go on IMDb. I have never seen this movie, but I can put a 1 out of 10 for the Eternals. And the fact that it went from a 5.9, which 5.9 was like 3,000 reviews, to 6.8 overnight. Movies like Captain Marvel and the Eternals should not have a 6.8 on IMDb. Captain Marvel, The Last Jedi, and the Eternals should not have such high scores on IMDb. Especially Captain Marvel and The Last Jedi. Okay? And people say, Disney does not do this stuff. I'm going to show you one movie that a lot of people despise. The Lion King remake. Okay? This movie was despised by every man, woman, and dog. Had the same score as the Eternals, somehow. Somehow the Lion King remake has a 6.8 out of 10. The original score was a 5.6. But over the couple of days when this movie came out, all of the Disney bots, all of the Disney fanboys, and all of the Disney bought and paid for reviews gave this movie probably a 10 out of 10 to boost it, 9 or 10 out of 10 to boost this movie's score on of course IMDb. Because the Metacritic score I think is around like 6.4 I think. But this movie's score is much lower. And the most solid one is The Last Jedi. Everywhere else, The Last Jedi has abysmal reviews. Except, of course, on IMDb, where it has a 6.9 out of 10. Okay? And you look at, like, The Phantom Menace, which used to be the most hated Star Wars movie. Until The Last Jedi came out. This is the Phantom Menace's score, 6.5. Okay? And that movie has gained a cult classic over time. A cult following, which is mostly the prequel fans over time. The Last Jedi does not have no cult following. Okay, but it apparently has a higher score than almost the entire prequel trilogy, barring Episode 3. Okay? So you're telling me the most hated Star Wars movie of all time, okay, and this movie has a 6.9 on IMDb. A 6.9 on IMDb. You're telling me a movie that has like a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes and like a 3.7 on, Metacritic, but on IMDb, the most popular movie review site, The Last Jedi has a good reviews. Somehow The Last Jedi gets good reviews, and Captain Marvel is the most jarring of these. Captain Marvel was despised by everyone. Yeah, the movie made $1 billion like The Last Jedi did because it's a Marvel film and because Endgame released, but Captain Marvel is currently saying that at 6.8. Again, Captain Marvel does have a cult following online. They're called Breebots, who will defend this movie because they think Brie Larson's the greatest actress of all time. They're on par with stupidity with Angelina Jolie, obsessors. People who are obsessive with Angelina Jolie, even though she's not that great. But the fact that Captain Marvel is a 6.8 out of 10, despite every other site, and the fact that Disney went out of their way to protect this movie as much as they can on Rotten Tomatoes as well, ruining the whole reviews, where we can't even trust the Rotten Tomatoes reviews anymore, with movies like The Rise of Skywalker, which has a frozen review score at an 86% approval by the fans, really can show you. And you can go on Rotten Tomatoes and see all the bought and paid for reviews. All the reviews saying like the same things. Mirrors and Misters of Evil somehow has a higher score than The Dark Knight, because Disney rigged the score so all Disney movies can have a positive score, good or bad. And even movies like Space Jam: A New Legacy have a good score. Okay, but we already have proven that Rotten Tomatoes is not trustworthy. We already have proven movies like Space Jam: A New Legacy has a positive rating, while every other site has Space Jam: A New Legacy at very low scores, very low ratings. Okay, at IMDb, it has a very low score on IMDb, and no one is talking about this. No one's talking about how Disney movies have poorly rated Disney movies have bad scores on most sites, and all of a sudden they get good reviews. All of a sudden they get good reviews. 6.8 is much better than the 5.6 it had. The Eternals had a lower score than the Justice League and Birds of Prey. But now it all of a sudden has a 6.8 on IMDb. Now all of a sudden, this movie has a 6.8 on IMDb. Okay? I get there are probably people who do like the Lion King remake, who probably do like Captain Marvel, who do like The Last Jedi, and do like The Eternals. But The Eternals is really that popular? Really that loved? Really that, popular? Not really. Okay? We all know this is probably a fraud by Disney fanboys and Marvel fanboys to give this movie a positive rating. As the more logical people start to come in, the score is most likely going to try to drop to 3.6.3 or 6.2, like Birds of Prey did. Birds of Prey is another example. The movie had such high scores, a 7.1, a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. Birds of Prey had a 7 out of 10 on IMDb, but the reviews kept plummeting every day and every week to where it is now. Okay? The movie was at originally like a 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb and the movie's score literally plummeted to 6.1 as the more logical people, and of course the fandom mass review bombs started coming in, because the fandom mass, because first it's usually always the fanboys and the obsessors and those people and the woke people and the feminists and stuff. They're always the ones that will come in for the movie first. And again, then you have the people, the more logical people, the people who actually seen the movie. You don't have the blind fanboys and IMDb giving the movie a 10 out of 10. And then, of course, you have, of course, the fandom menace coming in with their review bombs. Usually, if it's a decisive movie, the fandom menace usually puts the review bombs later on down the line, which drags the score down by like a 0.5 or 0.6. So that means that the total score holds for the next couple of days. The score will go back down to a 6.2 or 6.1, like Birds of Prey did. You had all of these people coming in praising this movie like it's the greatest movie ever, and then you had all the people who were saying this movie is a pile of shit and a pile of garbage, which this movie is a pile of shit and a pile of garbage. So, we'll wait to see if the Eternals holds up. It really depends on that second weekend. Again, the fandom mass will put the negative videos out for clicks. If people really like the Eternals, this movie should have good ratings like Shang-Chi. Again, the critics have been wrong before, giving a reader a 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, when literally everybody who watched the movie, with the exception of that one guy, said the movie was amazing. Most Sonic fans loved the Sonic movie, and the Sonic movie, the critics didn't really like it that much. Of course, it was one of the best rated video game movies of all time, but when you compare it to anything Pixar has made, yeah, Sonic is not really looking that great. Sonic was really on thin ice. But that movie, again, a lot of people, especially Sonic fans, loved the movie. A lot of Sonic fans gave the movie positive reviews. Of course, if you don't like Sonic, why did you go watch the movie? And second of all, why did you watch the movie? But, and yeah, people really love the Eternals. If people really love this movie should have good ratings at the box office. But I'm going to be more pessimistic and think it doesn't. Okay? The Suicide Squad is another example. Let's go back to the numbers. Let's go back to the numbers. And despite how well received the movie can be, it really proved movies like the Suicide Squad really proved that no matter how well again, there's a lot of movies that are like that. No matter how well received the movie is, if people don't like your previous movie, your movie will flop. Okay, why can't I go back to the previous shot? Okay. There you go, Suicide Squad. Okay, this is the Suicide Squad, $55 million domestically. It was a great movie, but this was the legs for the Suicide Squad. It was absolutely abysmal. And we can go to a more recent movie, Dune. Okay, a movie that was praised by everyone online. Everybody who's seen this movie called it a masterpiece. Said it is one of the best movies of the year and possibly of all time. This is the way. Actually, Dune's performing really well. Much better than Suicide Squad ratings-wise. It isn't performing the best ratings-wise, but it is performing okay, which means this movie should pass $100 million if these ratings hold for Dune. But a movie, I'm surprised this movie isn't having a world mouth. But again, the day-to-day streaming is really the real villain of the story. So, what's a movie that didn't have day-to-day streaming? Venom: Let There Be Carnage. A movie that was praised by a lot of people who loved Venom, who loved Spider-Man characters. This is the ratings for Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Even a movie that was praised by, its fan base, and another movie that the critics hated and despised. The Rotten Tomatoes establishment, because they can't have fun for once. They can't ever have fun, okay? They can't ever have fun. They have to ruin movies of we have to be all analytical. We can't have fun watching movies anymore because the critics will say your favorite movie is garbage and trash. Okay, I don't care if a good movie has a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes because they'll give city movies, like a sort of movie that came out last year that must not be said, an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. Why should I trust the Rotten Tomatoes establishment if they're going to give that movie such a positive score when everybody despises it? Okay? Here. And Venom: Let There Be Carnage does not have pretty good ratings. Again, Rotten Tomatoes could be paying a role for the movie's ratings. But it's really because I just don't really know. I think that a lot of superhero movies are just not really having good ratings. So, a lot of people are going to look at that Rotten Tomatoes score of the Eternals. If Venom didn't have good ratings and F9 didn't have good ratings, and both those scores didn't really have good, really favorable scores on Rotten Tomatoes, because people are going to be worried before going out to the theaters. And they see that 49% on Rotten Tomatoes for the Eternals. They're going to say, maybe I should sit this one out and wait for it to come out on Disney+. Because there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to want to watch the Eternals and say, yeah, I'm going to sit this one out and wait until it comes out on Disney+. Not watch it in theaters. And there, boom, you have a box office failure right there. Same thing with, and even movies with positive scores like The Suicide Squad and Dune. Movies that were endlessly praised by the fans of those movies. Which both movies will most likely become cult classics in the future. Dune even gain a sequel, and The Suicide Squad even gain a spin-off. So, we'll really wait to see how the movie holds at the box office. How the total holds at the box office. But it's anything like Black Widow's and Venom's performance, it's most likely gonna flop. Goodbye.